Hello everybody, this is Serpent. Welcome back to another episode in the updates of my graphing calculator mod series. A snappy title if ever there was one. Speaking of which, this is a cool graph, isn't it? Anyway, I know I've been gone for a long time. There is a reason for that. I've sort of been well, my hard drive crashed, broke, went up in flames, so I've had to reset from scratch everything. Well, I did save most of my data, which is good. I didn't lose anything important, but everything had to be built up from scratch, including the operating system. So I've been out of the loop for a little while. Just thought I'd tell you why. But let's get into this episode. I might talk about the hard drive issues in some other episode, but this is not the place or the time. So we have a lot of updates to get through. I've been updating this quite fiercely over the past weeks, and I've got a lot of cool things about it. In fact, you probably wouldn't expect this to have color changes, judging from the previous episodes, but that is in fact an update that I've done. So let's get started with that. Firstly, we've got a performance improvement. The graphs that have non-real components, like this graph of the square root of x. Previously, I would try and render the imaginary part, the part that doesn't exist, and naturally it would fail. That is no longer the case, so we have a performance improvement there. We no longer try to render stuff that doesn't exist. Next, we have a GUI improvement. So, firstly, there's a fix to the error notification. So previously, you would just get an error, invalid, whatever, and now the offending field is highlighted in red, and you get a reference to the field number down in the error. So that's a lot more helpful. Next, we have another improvement to the GUI, where if you have multiple blocks, it won't just choose whichever and work with whichever one it finds first. It'll notice that there are multiple blocks out and tell you that that's not allowed. So you won't accidentally lose all your nice function by having a loose block around. Let's see. So you can delete blocks by alt-clicking, and you can undelete those blocks by clicking undelete. You can copy blocks by control-clicking. Another nice feature is that you no longer get a glitchy GUI when you resize the window. So you can see that I've done an awful lot of resizing there. And previously the text fields would have duplicated every time I did that, but that is no longer the case. So cool there. We've got a lot of new equation blocks, not least these summations, which in fact are what I've been using to do this stuff. This is a summation, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail when I get to that in the changelog that I'm reading through. Don't want to repeat myself over and over again, so I should go in order. There have been a lot of bugs with transparent graphs, and I think I've weeded them all out, so they should work perfectly in all situations. Fingers crossed. And of course, if you find a bug, please report it to me and I can fix it. You can no longer delete equation blocks in the sideboard. You can't delete these things, that means. And I've improved the default domains for calculators, so it's no longer -8 to 8 for all calculators. There's something more relevant, like if I put 2 in, we get a sphere. Previously, it would probably render over itself a couple times because the domain was too large, but I've restricted it to be a bit more practical. And likewise, I've given better default domains for all the weird ones as well. As you can see here. Oh yeah, so I've changed the default resolution and tile count to be a little bit more practical again, because I've made some performance improvements. I've made a 5 to 7-fold performance improvement in all rendering, which is pretty cool. I'm pretty proud of that one. And another cool addition is the ability to color your graph by the slope. So if I change this to true, it's described in this text field here, you can see we get the graph colored by its slope. So this is a high slope, lower, 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 and lower over here. So the rate of change of the color is corresponding to the rate of change of the slope. You can see a very fast rate of change over here, because there's a faster rate of change of slope. and yeah, looks pretty nice. That's what I've done over there as well. So the colors there correspond to the rate of change of the function. The GUI no longer exits when you have an error. You can see it doesn't exit the GUI. Previously it would have, and it would have just yeah, not been very helpful. So that's a minor improvement. Next big change is graph collision. If I set this field to true, then I can collide with this graph and walk around on it, which I think is pretty fun. And it works for entities too. The collision works with entities, works with items, all that good stuff. And works on servers too. There's no server client desync. It's all everything in this mod is safe for servers as well as clients, so all cool there. Graphs can now be turned off with a redstone signal. So if I do this, the graph turns off, and if I pop that there, you can see the collision also turns off, which I think is a good touch. So we've got configuration improvements all around. I've got better names for all these things. They're no longer the variable names, which was not very helpful. I've got better descriptions for them, all that good stuff, and I've also made it so that these things update in real time. So if you change render graphs to false, you can see they stop rendering right away. Previously, you would have had to relaunch the world, which isn't too convenient. We've got a bunch of new configuration options in general as well. More options for rendering, like different, like the shade options to shade the graph, and Z-fight correction, things like that. This sort of distorts things a little bit, so I leave that on false. But if it's a problem, then you can turn it on. Things like color evolutions are new, so I can change this to 3, for example, and our colored graph over here, once we regenerate it, cycles through the colors more times. So that's what that one means, and I won't go through them all because they've all got pretty good descriptions. And then now is the time to describe the series operations, like the sigma summation. So let's grab a simple graph like x, right? And let's grab one of these series operations. So the sum from I to n of whatever. So let's say I equals 1, and this is all described in the tooltips, remember? So if you forget from this video, then that's fine. It's still there. So let's go with the sum from 1 to 1 of 1, which is 1. Big surprise there. And yep, definitely 1. So we have the sum from 1 to 1 of 1. Now let's go with the sum from 1 to 1 of x, and we get x, naturally. So if we go with the sum from 1 to 2 of x, then that's like saying 2 times x, right? So we get y equals 2x, naturally. And we can also say the sum from 1 to z of x. See, that's a little bit more interesting, isn't it? So the cool part of this, though, that's already pretty cool, but the cool part of this, though, is you can use I and n within the summation, and maybe a bunch of 1s, just so that I don't have to be too creative, because it's never a good thing. All right, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So the cool thing here is you can see these I, n, the numbers, they're updating as I do this. So if I take this out and then put this in, I've got the sum from I1 to N1, whereas if I put this in, I've got the sum from I2 to N2. So I've got all these variables indexed, and that's because you can use them within the summations. So if I want to say the summation from I2 equals 1 to N2 equals I0, I can say I can do that. I can use these variables that that I've defined within the summation blocks in the other summation blocks, which I think is pretty cool. And likewise, you can say n1 here, which would be this variable. So it's all pretty flexible stuff. And yeah, naturally that's what that looks like. Because I've got the sum from 1 to 1 of the product from 1 to 1 of the sum from 1 to 1 of x, which is, you know, x. All right, so I think that's pretty neat. Basically you can, as you're building this stuff, the variables update in real time, and you can use those variables within other blocks. And of course, it doesn't have to be in any one place. You can say the sign of I1 or something, and that'll be all good. Which of course is the sign of 1, or about whatever that is. The last thing I'm going to be showing you is this new coordinate system. We have elliptic cylindrical coordinates now, and this is these coordinates are in h mu nu, or is it mu nu h? I think it's mu nu h. Yeah. All right. So that's a surface of constant h, and this is a surface of constant mu, an ellipse, and this is a surface of constant nu. So you can play with that. Pretty cool. However, that'll be it for this episode. Hopefully you'll enjoy some of these updates, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, and bye-bye.